the men who held the strings. The face of the IMF was always polished, polite, a suit, a smile, a signature on crisp paper. But behind those doors thick, soundproofed, guarded not by soldiers but by secrecy, were the men who held the strings. They did not speak in absolutes. They spoke in forecasts, models, interest rates. They never raised their voices. They didn't need to. Their power was quiet, contractual. It began with a phone call, followed by a letter. A crisis in your country, a shortage of dollars. The IMF was ready to help in one condition, and then another, and another. By the 1980s, the script had become predictable. A developing nation, Argentina, Ghana, Indonesia, or Greece would stumble, its economy trembling under inflation, debt, or sudden currency shocks. The IMF would arrive like a surgeon summoned at midnight. But this surgeon didn't heal. He cut, privatize, deregulate, slash public spending, sell off national assets, remove subsidies, open up to foreign capital, let the market decide. These were the prescriptions, wrapped in terms like structural adjustment or austerity. But beneath the jargon was a truth as cold as steel. Sovereignty, once mortgaged to the IMF, was rarely reclaimed in full. In Kenya, hospitals lost funding. In Bolivia, water became a commodity. In Jamaica, local industries crumbled under the weight of cheap imports. And yet, each deal was signed because there was no alternative. Because the debt clock ticked louder than the protests outside Parliament. Sometimes they sent in experts, young, well-educated economists from Ivy League schools. They spoke with confidence, carried laptops like shields, and viewed entire nations as spreadsheets. But they didn't live in the neighborhoods where schools closed. They didn't queue for bread. They left before the riots began. Behind every loan, there was a ledger. And behind every ledger, a hierarchy. Voting rights in the IMF were not equal. They were based on quota show. Much a country had contributed. And the United States, with its vast reserves and even greater influence, held the largest single vote. Enough to veto, enough to shape decisions from the shadows. A man named Jacques, once a mid-level official in the IMF's European department, spoke in retirement of a meeting in 1994. He recalled an African minister, proud but cornered, sitting across a polished table. "You ask us to liberalize," the minister had said. "But what if it destroys our farmers?" Jacques remembered the silence in the room. No one answered. They just pointed to the agreement, waiting for the signature. It was not personal. It was protocol. But nations are not spreadsheets. And what was broken could not always be rebuilt. Throughout the 90s, resistance began to stir. Intellectuals, activists, former insiders began to speak out. Protests erupted in Prague, Seattle, São Paulo. The word IMF no longer evoked stability. It became a symbol of faceless power, of economic colonialism in a new suit. Yet even as criticism grew, the machinery did not stop, because the system was self-perpetuating. The loans led to more debt. The debt led to more dependence. And so the whisper continued not just from vaults, but from debt offices, where spreadsheets glowed like ghostly oracles in dim rooms. And somewhere, always, someone was watching. Not the protesters, not the poor, but those who held the gold not in vaults anymore, but in influence, in algorithms, in the fine print of agreements no citizen had ever read.